Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and last week I made a tablecloth out of men's ties. And I've had a lot of people ask, well, now how are you going to finish it? Well, because it's a tablecloth, I'm not going to be quilting it, but I do need to finish it. And the way I'm going to finish it means that we will not be binding all of those points. So we're going to make it easy to do and still fun to do. When I did sew these ties together, I did sew them together with a stabilizer and interfacing. So it didn't matter if I had the silk or any fabric, it's all stabilized and has a good weight to it. I did make this for a tablecloth, so I'm going to use it as a tablecloth. And because of that, I'm not going to be using a quilt batting. I am going to use just a piece of flannel, but the first thing I need to do is get that flannel onto the ties. So we are going to need a piece of flannel that's going to cover the entire surface. I did sew two pieces of flannel together. The reason I have sewn that flannel together in the center is I do want this opening, because once I stitch all the way around, I do need to pull that inside out. I also washed and dried this flannel in a nice warm water and a nice hot dryer. So I do want that shrinking to be done before I put it together. So I have my two pieces and I'm going to spread it out on a table. Now flannel does have a tendency to stretch a little bit more than cotton fabric. So what I do want to do is either tape this down just like we would any backing fabric, or clamp it down. So I have about a 1-inch lip along that counter. So I'm going to be able to clamp along that counter. And I'm going to just tug slightly and clamp that edge down. These are just regular clothespins that I did get at the dollar store. So I'm going to clamp the one side, the second side, and the third side. The one side that I cannot clamp, I'm going to put some tape. My tie tablecloth is 45 inches, so I do have a table that can accommodate this fabric. If you don't, I would recommend trying to put two tables together. What we really want is this back fabric stretched. You can see where this hole is. So this is the right side of the fabric. I'm going to put the right side of the fabric onto the right side of my tablecloth. Now I did not finish that hole off in the center. By having this open, it's going to just make it easier for me to do. Lay it on top of that stretched fabric, smooth it out, and pin. And I'm going to pin all the way around. And this is one time I will be using a lot of pins. Once all of those points are well pinned, I'm just going to cut it out because I don't need all of these extra corners to work with. This is going to be a lot easier to stitch without all of that extra fabric. And I'm simply going to stitch all the way around these points using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we're looking at the wrong side of the ties and the wrong side of that backing. Once we have stitched all the way around, we do need to trim off the backing. So we're going to just follow those edges. Once we've trimmed all the way around, we're going to need to put a little snip right here. This is the stitching line, and we need to snip a couple of threads to the point. So you can see how that is going to be cut. And just to save some of the bulk, we're going to be able to trim off that little triangle. And at the point, we do need to trim off a little bit. So that would be my stitching. I have a couple of threads that are going to be sticking out. Once all of those points are cleaned up, we're going to be able to turn it right side up through the opening in this back. Now that I've poked out all of those corners, I'm going to go to the iron and press them all so that they're nice and flat. And once all of these are pressed, we need to go to the back and stitch up that hole. All of my points look nice and the back is nice. I did press it, not ironed it, to make sure it was nice and flat. Now, if you find you have too much fabric along the back, this is where that center seam can come in handy. You can pull in seam allowances if you need to, or let them out. From here, we're going to do some stitching. The first thing I'm going to do is stitch a 1/4 inch all the way around the outside. And then I'm going to stitch just some straight rows, stitch a 1/4 inch going down so that I'm on each side of that seam. I do not want to stitch in the ditch, but I do want to go on each side. So I stitched a 1/4 inch along each seam and then one long stitch right down the center of that large tie. So for the back, I have all of these fans. I'm going to be able to clean up the back and the front. I will do this little circle very last. But what I'm going to do is do a circle for the back. But the circle for the back is going to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to take that back circle and cover up all of my stitching and stitch that down. So that little circle finishes off the back and it looks nice. Now I'm going to put the front one on. I'm going to line up that front circle and stitch around. So that finishes off the front of the tablecloth, and the back looks nice just as well. By using a flannel or just a fabric on the back, it has maintained it so it's not over thick, and that way I can really use it as a tablecloth. So my tie tablecloth is now done. It was a lot of fun to make, and I remember a lot of these ties. Now, if you want, you could always do a blue or a black flannel for the background, and that way you wouldn't see the stitching. But it's fun no matter how you do it, and I guess this is one time it is okay to spill on your tie. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and I do have a newsletter all under Sew Very Easy. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.